Hi everybody, welcome to Simply Scuba. Welcome to Ask Mark, where I answer all of your questions, comments, queries, and even corrections about scuba diving. So yeah, if you have any questions, comments, queries, or even corrections about scuba diving, let me know down in the comments below. And if you use the hashtag AskMark, then it might get featured in next week's show. So this week we're actually talking about what to spend on a dive gear shopping spree. Nice. Force fins, master jacket, washing your wetsuit, quick disconnects, and a universal mask strap. So let's jump straight into the first question, which this week comes from subscriber Sophie C, who asks, "Hi Mark, I've done my PADI open water. I'm going to join a dive club and will want to do the advanced open water when I've gained some more experience and confidence. My question is, let's say I have £1,000 to spend on my first dive spree. What exactly should I spend it on? Love your channel, thank you." Okay, so the usual go-tos are your mask and your fins, and then it starts getting into sort of dive computer territory, regulators maybe, then kind of a BCD. Nowadays, a lot of divers are investing in reels and spools for a DSMB as well. So a good mask, that's going to set you back somewhere between £50 to £80. You can get quite a nice mask for that sort of price range. A pair of fins, somewhere in the range of £100. You can get some that are sort of £50 that are pretty darn good. You can get some that are really much more expensive than £100. But yeah, sort of £100, you're getting a good pair of fins. You're going to need a pair of boots to go with those. They're usually about 40 to 50 quid. So that gets you your mask and fins. If you're looking at a pair of boots, I just get a standard pair of like 5mm high-sided soft sole boots. Something like the Mares NG Classic. They're a very good, versatile all-rounder. You can dive them in this country through most of the summertime, and depending on how sort of thick your wetsuit is, you can sort of extend that outside of the summertime. Of course, in like the Red Sea and tropical seas, you can still wear them. Your feet aren't going to get hot or anything. But once you have that good solid foundation of a pair of boots and a pair of fins and a mask as well, then that's a really strong foundation for you. Then when you get into sort of reels and spools, a spool you can get for like 20 quid. You can get a slightly nicer one for about 30 quid. DSMBs, you're talking about 50 quid. You can get some nicer ones. It's worth investing in a slightly nicer one. I prefer sealed DSMBs, just because it makes your life so much easier. And when you have your own, it just makes it a lot easier when you move on to your advanced open water and you're learning about sort of deploying DSMBs. If you're doing it with your own spool and your own DSMB, you're training on what the equipment that you actually have. So you're not going to be learning on something and then you finally invest in your own and you've got to relearn it as such. So I'd get that sort of fairly early. So now we're at like 300 quid, give or take. Then you have a choice. I usually recommend going for a dive computer, just because sure, you can rent them wherever you go. It's a piece of equipment that you're always going to need no matter where you are. But if you're renting them, you're going to rent a pretty standard base level dive computer. You're going to have to learn what it's trying to tell you. Whereas again, if you have your own, you know what the alarms mean, you know what all the little digits and things mean, so it's a bit more intuitive. So a dive computer, you're talking about £200, £300. You'll get quite a nice dive computer for 300 quid. Of course, you can keep going if you wanted to. You can move on to regulators, but then for a complete set, you're probably talking about £700, 800 quid for a decent set of regs. So yeah, I'd probably sort of stop at that. Mask, fins, and a pair of boots to go with your fins, and then probably a DSMB and a spool, and then probably a dive computer with the remainder. And then you can pick up some other bits and bobs. Like you could probably fill in the any remainders with a dive torch or something. Dive torches are always handy, even on daytime dives. But yeah, that would be my kind of order. And then BCD last. BCDs I wouldn't worry too much about. Again, it's one of those things that you can rent out there, and they all kind of do the same thing. Sure, again, you're going to get a pretty standard school style BCD, But then, yeah, when you're getting into BCDs again, you're talking about sort of 300 quid or something. But yeah, that would be my sort of route and what I'd sort of spend money on. The Man Underwater says, what do you think about force fins? I have a couple of buddies who swear by them, but they're very pricey, around 220 quid. I cannot believe they're efficient, powerful. Steve. Yeah, similar kind of scenario. I know quite a few divers who swear by them, and they love them to bits. I've never used a pair, I don't believe. Maybe in like a dive or something, just trying out a buddy's, but I don't remember that. Yeah, the one thing about force fins that will always come up is that, yeah, they're expensive. And for what you kind of get in the box, you kind of think, why is this so expensive? For those of you who don't know, force fins are a very compact pair of fins. They're quite clever in that most of the blade is underneath your foot, and then you have these two sort of flaring up things. They make a few different models, but the classic is very sort of flat against your foot, and then it has a sort of a cowl over the top that you put your foot in, a bungee heel strap, which was quite modern for the time, and then it doesn't really extend much beyond your foot. They're horizontal, so you can still walk around on the deck of a boat. You can even climb up some ladders. And yeah, apparently they are actually super powerful. As I said a bit earlier, there's a few different versions, like too many versions to work out. Some have little like nodule spiky things coming out of the tips. Some are a little bit longer. I think they even do a split fin version as well. But yeah, 220 quid. That is an investment. I think you can occasionally get some second-hand ones because it's a single piece of, I don't even know, rubber monoprene type stuff. They're pretty tough, but yeah, for me, there's plenty of other like vented fins that do me perfectly fine. But yeah, if you do want to sort of invest in a pair, I do know a lot of divers who are sort of advanced divers who do use them as well. And I don't know whether there is that bit of, I've just invested 200 quid in a pair of fins. I can't say anything bad about them. There might be a bit of that, but hey, they're still around, they're still doing their thing. They must be doing something right. Bing Serjuan asks, hi Mark, is it okay to wash a wetsuit in a front-loading washing machine? I'm only thinking of using disinfectant without soap, cold water, and finish with spin dry and then hang to dry. No, something in the back of my mind always says do not spin wetsuits. I think it's something to do with the seams. With that repetitive sort of tumbling, it does a number on the seams. But the other aspects were quite right. In low heat, wetsuits don't particularly like hot water. They're designed for cold waters. You can use warm water. I tend to use sort of a warmer water just to help sort of loosen stuff off. No detergent. Detergent can really damage your wetsuits. But for me, it is usually just some kind of dunk tank as soon as possible. If you leave it a couple of days, then the nasties tend to sort of embed themselves into the fabrics. But yeah, there are decent disinfectant like wetsuit washes nowadays. I can't remember the one that we used to sell. I want to say bio wash or something. That was quite good. I know McNett do some wetsuit shampoos and stuff. So yeah, something that's designed for wetsuits. Cold water, but put it in like a dunk tank or a bath or something, sort of warmish water but not hot, and yeah, give it a good soak, give it a good scrub in key areas, and then yeah, sort of hang it to dry on a wide coat hanger so it's not sort of digging into the shoulders, and out of the sun as well, because the sunlight can start to degrade things. It discolors as well, so try and do it in the shade somewhere with a bit of breeze. Sean Gannon asks, what are your views on a Scubapro Master Jacket? So the Master Jacket is a little bit of a weird one. I think it was one of those things. I have vivid memories when I was starting out. I was like sat in the dive center, just flicking through the manuals that you would. They'd had the yearly product breakdowns, so you could sort of like flick through and look through all the things. And one of them that sticks in the back of my mind was the Scubapro Master jacket. And you see the word master and you think, ooh, okay, that must be like the top. This is what everybody sort of wants. So I was like, oh, okay. And Master Jacket is basically a jacket style BCD, so the inflation comes around in front of your waist, but it also comes up over your shoulders as well. So that has a couple of benefits. The main one being in that if you're on the surface, you have the buoyancy in front of you, so you naturally float head upright. The human body, especially with like wing style BCDs or even just jacket style BCDs, tends to float face down, which is quite bad if you're unconscious. So floating in an upright face up position is quite beneficial. However, when you're scuba diving, there's no real need to have any buoyancy sort of in front of you, and the practicality of having all of this kind of stuff in front of you can be a bit like cumbersome. I don't think I've ever seen one in the wild. I can't recall seeing anybody diving in a master jacket and thinking, oh, that's the Scubapro Master Jacket. I don't think they're that popular. I could be wrong. If you dive in one and you'd love it to bits, let me know down in the comments below. But these kind of front-loading, front buoyancy jackets, you tend to see them more for emergency services, so like search and rescue crews. I know Hollis did one, which was just like an old ABLJ sort of horseshoe collar type thing that you literally, you throw on, you jump in. It was more that emergency quick instead of trying to get a BCD jacket on. But no, I mean, trying to find someone that actually stocks them, don't know. I don't see too many in dive centers that I visit, but yeah, there's plenty of other. I'm quite happy sticking just with my standard backplate and wing style BCD. Pusioi asks, why don't we use inflator hose quick connections for second stages? That could really help in the case of a free-flowing second stage. We kind of do. They do exist. You do have inline shut-off valves as well. You can get quick disconnects. There's quite a range. You either get a quick disconnect, which is just a pull, just like your standard like BCD style, but it's slightly different. The reason why we can't use the standard DIN fitting is the official sort of thing, is the airflow isn't quite up to scratch for breathing. The little Schrader valves, they're not really designed for that amount of airflow, and there's quite a bit of turbulence as the air comes through it, so it just increases your work of breathing. So you don't tend to use traditional like DIN style quick disconnect hoses. You can get some like I think C-Gen is one. There's a Buddy valve. Scubapro has their own. You do get some chunkier quick disconnects that do have a decent amount of airflow. And you do get some that are, because they're basically designed for their like Air 2s, those sort of integrated inflators, where you have a second stage built into your inflator, so you can still inflate your BCD, but you can still breathe from it, which is kind of cool. They do need a greater amount of airflow, so they have these special fittings. But for a traditional second stage, you can fit quick disconnects. Yeah, you either have that straight pull, which is a little bit dangerous, because if you're not really paying attention, if you're sort of like exchanging second stages or something and you just activate it accidentally, the pressure pops the second stage off, and if that's not attached to anything, that's just gonna go. So some have like a bayonet fitting. You have to twist it and then pull. You can get inline shut-off valves. Shut-off valves are just like a shuttle that you can pull it to one direction, that interrupts the airflow, sort of prevents that free flow, and then you slide it back and then you get normal airflow again. Similar problems with that. If you don't have like a locking mechanism, it's not free to move, but if you nudge it for whatever reason, you won't be able to inhale. You just undo it and you can breathe again, but again, you get some with a locking mechanism. You have to pull some kind of spring down and then slide it. So you do get those sort of locking mechanisms. We get changing blocks. You can sort of switch between 2 different air feeds. There's quite a few of these. Most of them are designed for, or mostly used for, like full face masks, because when you're on the surface, if you need to hand your BCD up to a rib handler, then your face is attached onto that BCD by the hose, and if you don't want to have the water kind of splashing on your face, it's always best to keep your mask on. A lot of full face masks, you have a surface air valve so you can still breathe, so you can disconnect the hose, hand the BCD up, you're still wearing your full face mask, you can still breathe, you can still see. Even if you duck under the water, you don't have to take it off with your BCD. So quick disconnects, they do exist. They're not outstandingly cheap because there's quite a lot of manufacturing goes into them, but they're not overly popular just because of the additional cost, and it's an extra failure point, and also most people don't really need it. As long as they know how to prevent a free flow, it's a little excessive. Phil Gomez says, my question for AskMark is, are you aware of a universal goggle style mask strap replacement? I'd like to try the Ziegel goggle style strap, but love the fit of my XD Radical mask and don't want to buy a new Ziegel mask just because I want to try their goggle style strap. So these new strap, they've been out for quite a while. They're like ski goggle fabric straps. The newest one is on the Fourth Element Scout mask, and there is a, you can never say universal, especially in the diving industry, because it's mostly universal. It'll fit most masks. The Fourth Element strap should fit most other dive masks because they basically have a little plastic hook on them that kind of hooks over the rotating barrel in the mask buckle. AquaLung have one as well. They call it a fast strap, and that fit, I think, every single one of my masks that I have sort of dotted around the house. Different brands. I think I had like a Cressy, a Hollis, a Scubapro, probably even a Tusa mask. It was one of those things where in the description it says it'll fit most masks. So I'm like, okay, let's test this out, and it did. So yeah, the Ziegel one I don't think, because that has a like some kind of zigzag fitting. I know you can get replacement mask straps, but it's more to change the color scheme of your sort of scope mask. So I don't think that's universal, but if you look at AquaLung, the AquaLung fast strap, that's a mostly universal fitting. The new Fourth Elements mask strap, that's very similar design, if not the same, with that sort of plastic hook that just clips on. And I tried it on a few. I tried it on a Apex VX1 mask for someone. They weren't sure if it was fitting, and I went to Apex and sort of asked them, and they confirmed that yes, it should fit. And then I later I like to confirm things myself. I actually got a VX1 mask and tried it, and I was like, phew, yes, it does fit. They're a bit of a sort of like push and a click. But once it's on, it's nice and secure. So yeah, there is a universal sort of elastic style strap, but just be careful. Just be sure that it sort of fits that barrel. Most of them are for a fairly standard size, but there are going to be some that are a little bit so like shorter or a little bit chunkier. So do be careful. And that's it for AskMark. Some interesting questions again today. So yeah, if you have any interesting questions, pop them down in the comments below. And if you use the hashtag AskMark, all one word, just makes it a lot easier for me to find them. I noticed that one of the subscribers helped someone else sort of get it sort of linked up because they used AskMark as 2 separate words. So thank you to them. And yeah, if you've got any interesting sort of questions, comments, queries, or even corrections, let me know down in the comments section below. And remember to head over to simplyscuba.com, where we sell all of our interesting shiny new dive equipment. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.